So what I decided to do today is, your dad and Jim Crockett were good enough to give me a segment every week back in the PWI days when I was there, called Scouting Report, where we looked at the strengths and weaknesses of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, you remember the one where your dad was there? I was doing with Ric Flair, and your dad was in the box from home.
Yeah.
You used to quote that to me. You used to actually recite the lines for that.
Little me did.
Yeah, you did.
I liked your scouting report. It's a good idea.
Yeah, so I figured, why don't we do that today?
Let's do it.
I want to take Cody the executive and Cody the man that brought all these people to the All Elite Wrestling and see what you feel their strengths and weaknesses.
Oh yeah, I'm all about it, Scotty.
So let's start off with the World Heavyweight Champion.
Sure.
Okay, we're talking about Chris Jericho. Now, I have known Chris Jericho through every incarnation of his career.
Right.
And I have never seen a Chris Jericho more outspoken, more vile and nasty and arrogant as the current Chris Jericho. So, strengths, weaknesses.
Strengths is Chris Jericho's developed a completely different style since he, left WWE. Actually, he started it with New Japan. As far as Chris has become a total brawler, and the Judas effect was something I think people kind of giggled at. And then he knocked out Kenny Omega, and he knocked out Hangman Adam Page. So the Judas effect and the disparity in his styles, because it's not the Lionheart you're wrestling, or at least you think that,
Correct.
And then you get a drop kicked off the apron, or the Lion Salt. He's able to do it all, master of all. So strengths, it's a pretty long list. But his current style is probably the biggest strength of all. Second, he's flanked himself with Jake Hager, Sammy Guevara, Santana, and Ortiz. So for the longest time, the Elite had no counterparts, and we wanted them until we got them.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah,
And
the inner circle.
the inner circle is definitely number 2 on that list of strengths. Not many weaknesses for Chris Jericho.
Is the inner circle, and again, we go back in history, we always talk about this, is the inner circle possibly becoming and I know it's early, but are they kind of becoming like that 4 horsemen of AEW?
Well, because you
there.
love wrestling. They didn't come together because somebody said, let's make a faction.
Yeah.
They came together because it was easier to do the 8-mans or the 6-mans,
Sure.
and then let's get them all on an interview together, and then magic.
Yeah, click.
So now we've got Santana and Ortiz, who's some of the best tag wrestlers in the world. Sammy Guevara, the Spanish God, who took me to the limit on the very first Dynamite ever, made his name be known, and had been in the Texas scene for some time, killing it. And Jake Hager, who's not at all Jack Swagger. And
No.
I don't mean that in a negative to Jack Swagger. I mean, Jake Hager said, I'm going to go do MMA, and he's won 2 fights. He's an NCAA All-American. And if you know anything about folk-style wrestling, to be an NCAA All-American is harder than winning the Olympics. Right. NCAA is the spot for folk-style and freestyle wrestling. And Jake, with those long arms, ankle-picking everybody, he's flanked himself with some of the best. So they could be I think they've already superseded a lot of factions, even though they're just in like gestation and their infancy as a faction. But like I said, the Elite wanted people to wrestle, and then we got them.
Yeah.
So now we'll see how much
Now
we
you
want it.
this could become your American nightmare.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we were talking about rankings, and I know you were talking to our good friends at WrestleZone about doing rankings. So of course, being in the pro wrestling reporting and journalism field, I came up with my top 10 under Chris Jericho, top challengers. So again, weaknesses and strengths. Let's start off with this guy named Cody Rhodes.
Sure. I mean, I know I could do the Michael Scott and tell you all these like great things about myself, but I know,
about that.
the biggest weakness I have, if you can tell watching this, I have a cold, and the reason I have a cold is because I do not sleep, and I'm not complaining because I wanted this job. But the executive role, the executive vice presidents are very real jobs. These are marketing meetings, these are research meetings, these are data meetings, these are all these things that I'm learning, but it's taken a toll on me, whereas Chris Jericho only has to think about wrestling. And
How about his musical career?
I think he doesn't have to think about that
Okay.
as much as he just loves that. But for me, I definitely that's definitely the area where I'm lacking, and it could hurt me if that makes any sense.
Okay.
But I've tried to counterbalance it by Carolyn Fazio, who's my nutritionist and trainer, comes on the road with me. No pun intended. My inner circle with Nick Kinney. They try to shoulder the same amount of this role so that we can produce segments, but also be prepared for our matches and things of that nature. But coming off the best wins of my life, my match with Dustin in Vegas and my match with Shawn Spears in Chicago. You can say what you want about those matches. People really love both matches.
Yeah.
But personally for me, the thing I loved about them was the whole time I've been wrestling, I've been looking for this connection with the audience. Like, hey, and it's there.
Yes.
And then it goes away. And then it's there, and it goes away. Now I feel like I finally found my stance at the plate, and it's home run, and they're just getting more excited about it. I think people respect the fact that I'm putting my face on this. I'm not doing it to be egotistical. I'm doing it because I'm putting everything into this. I really believe in Tony's vision, in the endeavor. I don't want to just be the new kids on the block. I'm glad we're the new kids on the block now, but there's this long form route we got to go. And wrestling fans have been complaining for 18 years. I've heard every complaint. I've made a lot of the complaints. Like, we have all that equity to build upon, and these returners, these fans coming back. Not to get off your rankings, but it's made for a really good interaction with me and the fan. And I live for it. The Bucks know. They saw me last week. I didn't wrestle, and they could see my foot literally tapping. And like, I can't not wrestle. I'll go nuts.
Right.
I need that, and I hope they need that too. So that's I'm entering the prime of my career. Chris is probably on the backside of the prime of his career. You never know with him.
No, you wouldn't.
But that being a strength for me is that I've invested in making sure I stay the best wrestler I can be, and that I continue to learn and continue to try. I'm not going to rest on just being the wrestler I was.
Okay. At 6'2", 224 pounds, Jon Moxley has come here with a renewed attitude, out to just prove that he is the destruction machine that everyone had seen before, but even greater. Strength, weaknesses.
Oh, I think Mox is like he's an all-strength guy because he's incredibly focused. I think he went from being kind of overexposed and overutilized to the point where he was burning himself out. I mean, that's how you end up with a MRSA infection, really, if you let that sit and you don't know what's happening. Now he's, his eyes fixed on AEW. He knows that he's taken that leap, so he has to deliver. He's also he's changed his training to where he's training with I think it's Josh Barnett, but in Vegas, he's training mixed martial arts to apply it to pro wrestling. So he's in the best shape he's ever been. He's genuinely one of the bigger guys we have on our roster, and it definitely helps that at one point he was by far the most over famous guy in WWE, even if it was for a hot minute.
Oh, yeah.
For him to cross that line and join us is massive. I'd say I cannot find a weakness other than perhaps Jon Moxley doesn't care about the titles as much as Jon Moxley cares about beating people up.
Yeah, and he's so unpredictable. You never know where he's going to show up, what he's going to do.
Absolutely. That's entertaining about him, though.
Yeah. Hangman Adam Page. Strengths, weaknesses.
So Hangman is, Kevin Kelly told me years ago, or not years ago, last year he told me, I really like what you're taking him under your wing. And I told Kevin Kelly that I'm not taking Hangman under my wing. He's got this. Maybe I can tell him about getting into a building or where the gym is.
But not how to wrestle.
Not how to wrestle. He knows how to wrestle. He's, for a long time, kind of been a secret in the elite. And being in the first title match with AEW, he's not a secret anymore. His size and his ability to be able to do a running shooter, to be able to execute the buckshot lariat, which is like Stan Hansen meets Too Cold Scorpio.
Oh,
it's he's really a combination of all styles. He has his head on his shoulders. He's not someone that spotlight and now being on TNT Weekly is going to go to his head, which I'm sure you have seen. It really does.
Absolutely.
People start to believe their own stuff. The only weakness I'd perhaps see with Hangman is he second guesses himself, and that's part of being young. And maybe he second guesses himself too often. The wrestler Hangman Page can hang with anybody. He's a world title level wrestler, I'd love to see him get another shot at it.
Okay. Let's talk about the chairman.
Sure.
The chairman,
Sure.
as they call it. That shocked me. When I saw Shawn Spears, he do, yeah, I know it did, but when I saw that happen, it brought me back, of course, to the 24,000 Mick Foley chair shots, but he only needed that one to do the same amount of damage
Sorry, I'm laughing
to you.
about it.
Well, no, it's true. So,
Felt the staple marks on the back of my
right,
head. So, yeah.
yes.
Shawn Spears, his size is definitely an advantage. He's a bigger guy for All Elite Wrestling. He's really well seasoned. He taught me to wrestle
Yeah.
at
Oh,
OVW,
right.
so they paired him with me because I couldn't do anything. And of course they're like, "Oh, it's Dusty's kid. He should know it all." Like, didn't know a damn
You
thing.
didn't?
No,
All
I
right.
barely knew how to hit the ropes. So Spears helped train me. He's an asshole, so that's his weakness.
Pretty big weakness.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what.
Is he in?
I think Spears' weakness. He has all those tools as far as physically and as a pro wrestler. I think his weakness is you got to decide what you're doing. Are you out there wrestling the guy you're across from, or are you wrestling yourself?
Yeah.
And he's got a chip on his shoulder that's so big, from whether it be from 10 or whether it be from the literal 10 years he was in the developmental when he shouldn't have been.
Right.
You got to get over that chip. And maybe that's what Tully Blanchard is there to do. But so far,
I was just going to bring him up.
yeah. So that's definitely Shawn Spears. Maybe his biggest weakness is that chip on his shoulder.
Tully Blanchard and your father, of course, have a storied history, one of the most amazing feuds in the pro wrestling thing. Do you think that Tully is still trying to, that he's doing this to try and still dig into the Rhodes family and the legacy?
So I want to say no, but then I'm in the building in my mind in Chicago at All Out, and he's gripping me on the back of the neck when I throw Shawn over the barricade, and he's got a grip with double tendons like freaking Danny Hodge.
Yes, yeah.
So I maybe he is, and maybe that's why he didn't approach me about being a coach. But I'd like to think the best of Tully, that he's long since buried the rivalry that existed between not just himself and Dusty, but the Four Horsemen and Dusty.
Okay. All right.
I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt.
All right. Let's look at someone who's been on, who's a great wrestler,
Sure.
and he's become a legend in his own time, Kenny Omega. But he's been he's been having a hard time of it recently.
Kenny Omega is. There's like a bazillion things you can say about Kenny Omega, but
He's number 5, by the way.
number 5. Wow, people, Omega fans would be mad. Kenny Omega is the master of dynamic motion. Probably not a better combination of strength and quickness. I don't know if you remember how Muda used to throw off that Muda elbow and those bursts. Kenny Omega is the master of the burst, which is why his V-trigger looks way better than everyone else who's trying to do a flying knee today, because that's like the flavor of the month, like, let me do a flying knee. But Kenny's is the V-trigger, and Kenny puts you away with it. I think Kenny has to get... I don't think there is a weakness as far as his in-ring when he puts it all together. I think Kenny just maybe has to get accommodated and used to wrestling in America. Not because the styles are different, because he lived in Japan. That's a big culture shock to all of a sudden move to Orlando and start your life anew. People aren't taking that into account.
He's also wrestling guys who haven't wrestled with the years he's wrestled in Japan.
Sure.
So he's got to adapt to the style of his opponents.
So yeah, I think that him getting Kenny Omega being who Kenny Omega is, you said, like, he's a legend in his own time. He's the wrestler of the year last year.
Yes.
He had some absolute classics. I got to see the draw he had with Okada and Osaka, and it's just really like was sitting there like, man. A lot of times when you're a wrestler, you're like, oh, I'd do this. When I was watching it, I just thought, damn, like, he's got some magic.
Right.
The cool thing is we get to see that magic on weekly TV, and we're just waiting. If that makes any sense, we have a franchise star,
Yes.
and when he turns it on, it's full tilt boogie. He'll be good to go. I am not happy that he's number 5.
Well, I'll tell you why he's number 5. I've been going by wins. Been going by
wins and losses. No, you're right.
So
You're
we've
right.
got Cody, Moxley, Hangman Adam Page, Shawn Spears, Kenny Omega, and that brings us to your buddy, number 6, MJF,
Sure.
who everybody has telegraphed that one of these days you're going to get another chair on the head, and it's not going to be from Shawn Spears.
No.
It's going to be from Mr. Friedman.
It's wrestling, so people are like, oh, he's definitely going to turn on him.
course.
He's had every opportunity to turn on me. Like, he's not. We're legitimate friends. I get that we don't.
Wait a minute, growing up, didn't you have legitimate friends who turned their
I don't
back
have
on
any
you
of
at
those
one
friends
time?
anymore that I grew up with. I know Max because I've been like Max. I see a lot of myself, a lot of my younger self in Max.
He's so arrogant, by the way.
Very, very. But I think Max always comes into every room with me under the impression and the knowledge that I opened the door for him in the first place.
Okay.
That doesn't mean he owes me anything, because once you go out there and deliver, that's all you owe anybody.
Just listen, remember, and you're a historian with this
Sure.
business. You go way back. Remember Larry Zbyszko and Bruno Sammartino. Okay?
That's a
All
great
right?
one.
Okay.
I can guarantee
Okay.
you, though, Max does not turn on me.
Okay.
I can make that
Okay.
just was it Men's Warehouse guarantee, right? I can make that guarantee.
Men's Warehouse, all right.
I guarantee it.
All right. Is his arrogance a plus or a minus?
Minus in the ring, because if you take so much time to grandstand and to Hollywood Blondes it, is when you let your guy get up. Arn Anderson always gave me a great example. When you're looking at an opponent and you want to like hot dog and grandstand, keep your eyes on them. The moment you put your eyes on the people is the moment that the tension is lost, and that individual can get to their vertical base, not to kind of get into the wrestling vernacular of it. But if you're going to do all that, do it at them. But Max is also the only guy who's flat out beat somebody in like under 3 minutes at this
So
point.
he's number 6. What would he say if he was sitting in this chair? What would he say about the number 6 ranking?
I think he would not be happy that Shawn Spears is ahead of him, because I think Max because at both one point in my life, Shawn was a close friend of mine. And I think he took everything personally there, so I would say he's not happy about that particular spot.
All right. Number 7 at
Shouldn't
5.
be happy, though. You want to be number
Yes,
1?
of course.
Yeah.
At number 7, 5'8", 206 pounds. Pac is back.
Sure.
Yeah, and
He's-
he's on the attack.
He's the Ohio State
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
Ohio State's probably the best team in football, but we always their conference not being the SEC, you don't necessarily let them know they're that until you get to the end. Right now, he has a win over Kinney,
Yeah.
and he has a win over Hangman Page. So he's got wins over 2 guys that are in your top 5.
Absolutely.
So-
Absolutely, but he hasn't wrestled as many matches as
Right,
either one
but
of those.
he could make the argument for he should be number 2.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
and he will.
Yeah, so-
I'm sure he will.
I think a future. I've heard a lot of fans say that Pac's undefeated. Where's his title shot? I could see him out getting a title shot very soon, because again, we want to make it clear wins and losses matter. So Pac's amazing. He's changed everything about himself and how he goes in the ring. But we're lucky to have him. Not the friendliest guy, but lucky to have him.
So when TNT first kicked off the first night of All Elite Wrestling,
Yeah.
the first match coming into the ring was Cody Rhodes against this unknown guy to most of the fans, Sammy Guevara. And
Guevara. Yeah, he's still unknown to you.
It's right. Well, I wasn't that familiar with how to
Guevara.
pronounce his name. Well, it's the New York, Philadelphia
Sure,
accent.
sure.
Sammy.
Sure.
Right. But in the meantime, that match set the pace for the rest of the evening. The match was, it hit on every piston. Everything was going
Sure.
there. It was excellent. And he made a name for himself in that match. I was very impressed with his style,
Sure.
having only seen him a few times in the Indies. Strengths and weaknesses, in your opinion?
Well, the strengths are what he's able to do in the ring. He's got JR alluded to it on commentary. He has a longer body than people think. He's got a hell of a reach. He's a lanky guy who's going to grow into that physique. And the stuff he's able to do, whether it be the Spanish Fly,
Yeah.
or other things that are in his offensive repertoire. But the weaknesses are his age. You're talking about Max having an attitude. Sammy Guevara might have a worse attitude.
Yeah. His age being young and
Immature.
immature.
And when you're on TV,
cocky.
you get more immature. So that's one I worry about more from not a wrestling perspective. Not that he didn't give me a great match. I worry more about him from an executive level.
Okay.
Because I'm responsible for him, even though he doesn't probably want to admit that in terms of, and he's around Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho lives pretty fast. So I want to make I would hope that Sammy learns and not learns the hard way. But his immaturity is his weakness, and it is applicable to every part of his life. Late for the building, takes a lot of time with the fans. Kicked me right in the balls on national television, so that doesn't help. Sammy's immature.
Late for the building. In the old days, in the territories, he would have been sent to another territory.
It's not the territory, though, man. Not the territory.
I know it. So, number 9, Joey Janela. One of the more controversial and unusual personalities in pro wrestling.
I kind of want number 9. I can't read your writing.
I got Darby Allin as number 10, so we can.
I kind of want number 9, number 10, and I want 9, 9A, 9B, 9C, and that being Darby, Janela, and Jimmy Havoc.
Oh right, Jimmy Havoc was bubbling under the top 10.
So all those guys, I feel like I've wrestled all 3. They can wrestle. They've been trained. They have genuine fundamentals, and they're great wrestlers. They're the characters that they present, and they're yearning to take risk, whether it's Darby coming from the world of Tony Hawk, Janela coming from CZW, or Jimmy Havoc and Progress and all that. Their willingness to take risk makes them puts them in situations like death matches, like lights out matches, like the Cracker Barrel Clash. I want to see them all go bell to bell. I've seen Darby. I really look forward to the day that I can stand across the ring from Jimmy Havoc. And to get back to the original person, Joey Janela, I don't know why Joey Janela is controversial. Maybe his Twitter game it sucks.
That's it.
When you tell somebody, hey, your Twitter is terrible, your social is terrible, they almost look at you like you're an old man or you're joking. But man, like there are a couple people who will not literally get hired in certain companies because their social media is so terrible.
You're a Twitter maniac. You're on Twitter.
I'm a lot.
You're a lot, but it keeps your followers engaged in very positive messages about AEW.
I try to be very positive, and I'm trying to go black and white on my social. Like, I want to promote the events. I want to promote the talent on the events. When you get into your personal life and things of that nature, or when you get into politics or religion, it's just like a first date. You should treat social media like a first date. Things you don't talk about. But those guys, Janela shouldn't be controversial. One of the most professional people on earth. Somebody who's a total, this isn't a team sport. I get it. Wrestling is an individual thing, and you want to continue to grow your brand, but he has been very team-oriented with wanting to help AEW, not unlike he helped GCW. Anyone that Jim Cornette says, that guy's bad, I don't think Jim realizes the moment he says that guy's super over now. Because there's an audience that wants to rally against that. You're basically telling him, hey, rock music is too loud. It's so... How you don't see that? Hey, Harley Race shouldn't take backdrops in St. Louis. It's not. It's the evolution of the industry, and Joey Janela is a great example of a modern wrestler. And he's every week he's hitting the gym. He's doing his best to get in better shape. He's doing his best to put out the best matches. There's an episode of Dark that goes up tonight or went up last night, depending on when you put this out there, that him and Kenny Omega had an absolute banger match. Joey Janela is very special. And I say that, and then he's going to go do something stupid and get in trouble. But I stand by the fact that I think Joey Janela is the utmost professional, and I think he can definitely grow. I think we were only scratching the surface on what he is as a wrestler. It could be a situation a little bit like Buddy Landell, if that makes sense.
Yes.
He's going to be his own worst enemy, or his best ally himself, is how he treats weekly television wrestling, because it ain't for everybody.
All right. So my number 10, of course, I mentioned Darby Allin because of him becoming the number 1 challenger for Chris Jericho. Now, this is being taped the night before Philadelphia, where Darby Allin will be taking on Chris Jericho for the World Championship. And like they say in pro wrestling, you never know what's going to happen. You could wind up at Full Gear against Darby Allin.
Good. Well, I can 100%. If Darby beats Chris, is 100% the match. I'll wrestle Darby instead. We would not. I don't think make it a triple threat, because we really want to keep the integrity of the one-on-one World Championship match to start, at least. So Darby has that. Just like in the day when you won 10 pounds of gold, you inherited all them plane tickets. Right. You inherited all those trips
Yeah.
every week, different market, boom, 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 boom. That is, everybody wants to be world champion.
Yeah.
And then I think you become world champion, and maybe, oh gosh, and some guys really lean into it. Ric Flair, Harley Race, Jack Briscoe, Chris Jericho. Even though he lost the belt in like 5 minutes of having it, he still has, he's leaned into it. He knows the stresses of being a world champion. Darby, this could be a crash course in it for him. But this is the first title match ever on Dynamite, a Philadelphia street fight. It's really,
Yeah, this is going to be great.
it's going to be great.
Going to be great. The last person I want to talk to you about, because he thought that it was all over. It was end of his wrestling career was over, and I've seen a new energy in this this brother of yours, Dustin Rhodes, that I talk to all the time. Yeah, yeah. Did it shock you how he just became the natural again?
No, it didn't, because Dustin, he's like Chris in a lot of ways. There's a disparity in his styles now. He doesn't wrestle like he used to wrestle. He's changed. He's been able to evolve. And with one match a week potentially on that schedule, he can actually do that full speed. He can still be, you see this a lot in the NFL. Players are hitting an age where you're like, oh, how are they this good still? And it's because they invest in their bodies and their minds. And Dallas Page has helped Dustin with, DDPY, so many other wrestlers. Not only that, Dustin's one of the sober wrestlers who had, substance abuse problems in the past and actually beat them head on. He's not a fake, he's not a fake preacher about it at all. It's very much a lifestyle he lives. He's replaced that substance abuse with his training and his regimen, and he wants something. My brother wants something, and I can tell by how he comes every week. He's, as a coach, one of the main coaches who are making suggestions, and he's a promo coach, an interview coach for AEW as well. I'm very proud of Dustin. I try to stay away from him, because when we collide, things like Double or Nothing happen, or when we tag together, we weren't good for each other then. So I try to stay away from him. But man, I'm proud. This is where he's chosen to kind of hang his hat, perhaps at the end of his career. But he's definitely not. I could see another 5 years full speed of Dustin Rhodes.
That's great. That's great. Thank you for your time with the scouting reports. And as we always end the Apter chat interviews pointing out at the camera, and we'll see you at the matches.
See you at the matches,
if you will.
if you will.
Thank you.